Next is assessment. What is assessment? Section 2, subsection 8. What is assessment? Okay. Assessment means fix or decide the tax. Assessment means fix or decide the tax on the income of assessee. You have to fix the amount of tax or decide the amount of tax on the income of assessee by the income tax authority after computing his income. After proper valuation, after proper computation, or after proper calculation of the income of a person, the income tax authority comes to a decision regarding the amount of tax and amount of income. So the process of fixing the or deciding the amount of tax of a person is called as assessment. So this assessment is having two stages. The first stage is computation of total income. First of all, you have to calculate the total income. How to calculate the total income? Total income is to be calculated on the basis of 5 heads. First of all, you calculate the income from salary. Second, income from house property. Third, income from business or profession. Fourth, income from capital gain. Fifth, income from other source. Then total of this is called as gross total income. In the gross total income, you deduct the deductions from deduction under section 80. And whatever remains, that is called as total income. This is the first stage. And second stage is determination of tax liability. Determination of tax on the total income means you have to calculate the total tax on the income at the given slabs. Okay, at the given slabs you have to calculate the income. This is called as assessment. Assessment is having two stages. In the first stage, you calculate the total income. In the second stage, you calculate the tax liability or tax payable. Okay, this is called as assessment. Therefore, the assessment means computation of total income. Assessment means computation of total income and tax liability of an assessee on the total income. This is called as assessment. Okay. Then there are different types of assessments. There are 4 types of assessment. What are those? First is self-assessment. Second is assessment on the basis of return. Third is regular assessment. Fourth is reassessment. There are 4 types of assessment. Assessment means 2 stages. One is assessment of income. Second is assessment of tax. Computation of income, computation of tax. That is called as assessment. And there are 4 types of assessment. What is first? Generally, I'll in 2-3 words I will explain the meaning, and then I'll go for detailed explanation. What is self-assessment? Self-assessment means the person who is having the income. A person who is having the income calculate his income and calculate the tax liability and pay that tax liability to the income tax department. It is called simply self-assessment. Self-assessment. A person who is having the income himself calculate the income, himself calculate the amount of tax liability and pay the tax liability to the income tax department. It is simple meaning. Okay. And what is second one? Assessment on the basis of return on summary assessment. In the first stage, the person submit the report to the income tax department, and income tax department on the basis of the return file. Return means it is a form. It is a form which containing the details of income and amount of tax. Form containing details regarding income and income tax is called as return. Remember this. Okay. On the basis of return filed by the assessee, income tax officer starts to check the accuracy and correctness of the amount of income and amount of tax. That is called as assessment on the basis of return. This is conducted by the income tax department. First is conducted by the assessee himself, a person who is having the income himself. This is the first and second. First is a person who is having the income, calculate the income and calculate the tax and pay the tax to the government along with income tax return. That return is called income tax form. That form is called as return. Okay. And income tax department take the details and starts its process. It starts the verification of the information given. That given information is reliable or not, whether that is correct or wrong, whether is there any income is missing. The process is undertaken by income tax department. That is called as assessment based on the basis of return or summary. Second stage. And third is regular assessment by assessing officer. Regular assessment. Regular means it is a continuous work undertaken by the income tax department on the basis of evidence, on the basis of best judgment. There are two. On the basis of evidence means the regular assessment officer, income tax officer, assesses means compute the total income, compute the tax based on the evidences given by the income holder. That is called on the basis of evidence. Second is best judgment. What is best judgment? In some cases, the assessee gives the evidence or will not give the evidence, or he gives the evidence but that evidence is not satisfactory. That is called as second stage. In the first stage, on the basis of evidence given by the assessee, income tax officer assesses the income. Best judgment means according to the knowledge, based on the knowledge of the income tax officer, which is best. He apply the best knowledge regarding the calculation of the assessee income and calculation of the tax of the assessee. That is called as best judgment. Best judgment is applicable only when the assessing officer is not satisfied with the evidences given by the assessee, or evidence is not given by the assessee and that evidence is not related to the subject. Then best judgment comes. This is the point. And reassessment or income escaping assessment. Reassessment means whenever the assessment is completed and tax is paid and any one person or any outsiders or third party informs to the income tax department regarding the income of any person, or income tax departments comes to know that some people are escaping from the income tax and some peoples are suppressed or not shown the incomes. At that case, the fourth stage comes. Okay, there are four types of assessments. First stage assessment is self-assessment. It is assessed by assess himself. Second is also general assessment based on assessee. Third is on the basis of evidence we assess, income tax department assess, and evidence is not given, best judgment is applicable. And reassessment and income escaping assessment are the hard and fast rules. The persons who escape from the income tax department or try to escape from the income tax, on those people reassessment or income escaping assessment is undertaken. We see one by one. Self-assessment. Okay, you see this. Self-assessment means the assessment is made by the assessee himself by computing the total income. He computed his total income, determine the tax, then that the tax is paid to the income tax department based on whatever tax paid. It may be tax considering tax deducted at source, advance tax, and balance of tax. On the basis of this, he pay the tax. This is called a simple self-assessment. You remember only 3 points. This is the assessment made by assessing himself, taking into consideration of his income and tax liability. He pay the tax and submit to the income tax department. This is self-assessment. And second is assessment by on the basis of return or summary. Means the income tax department on the basis of income tax return filed by the assessee start the assessment, means calculate the income, calculate the tax. That process is called as assessment on the basis of return or summary. Okay, it means assessment is made by assessing officer on the basis of return of the income tax filed by the assessee without requiring assessee to produce evidence in support of his return, without asking anything, whatever given is there, whatever information is there, on the basis of that he starts the assessment. Okay, in other words, assessment made just on the basis of return of the income without making any inquiry. Okay, second one. And third is regular assessment. In the regular assessment there are two. One is regular assessment, means assessment made under section 143 subsection 3 or best judgment under section 144. Regular assessment. Regular means regularly they start the assessment. In the regular assessment, first is based on evidence. Based on evidence means on the basis of evidences given by the assessee, income tax department compute the income and compute the tax liability, penalty, etc. And income tax department satisfies with the evidences given by the assessee. That is called as based on evidence. Okay, based on evidence. Evidences means income tax department asks the extra information, extra documents, extra explanations, then start the process of computing the income, computing the tax. That is called as based on evidence. And second is best judgment. What is best judgment? Best judgment means assessment made by the assessing officer to the best of his judgment. Best of his judgment means whatever he knows, whatever he thinks best, that is the best judgment. Whatever thinks as best, that is the best judgment after taking into account all the relevant information which he has gathered. First of all, he has to collect or gather the required information. On the basis of available information, he is to take best judgment regarding total income and total tax. That is called as best judgment assessment. Okay, and this is possible under the following cases. The assessing officer has to compulsorily make such an assessment in the following cases. Where the best judgment assessment comes, we undertake when the assessee fails to file the return. Assessee has not filed the return, who is having the income but not filed the return. Income tax department take action. That is called as best judgment. Second is when the assessee fails to comply with the notice for production of accounts, documents and other information. Assessee fails to compile with the notice or any document. He will not react properly. He will not react properly for the notice given by the income tax department. Then best judgment applicable. Then third is when the assessee fails to compile with the directions of the assessing officer to get account audited. If the income tax officer direct the assessee to get audit the accounts, but assessee will not get audit them, then best judgment is possible. Then fourth is when the assessee, after filing the return, fails to comply with the notice issued by the assessing officer required in the presence of the assessee, or evidence, fails to produce the required information, fails to produce the evidence, fails to give information in presence, then best judgment is possible. These are the examples of best judgment assessment. Okay. Then reassessment or income escaping assessment. This is also last stage. In this section 47, 147 of the income tax empowers the assessing officer to make the assessment of escaped income or reassessment. Some income is escaping, means the big business peoples or some tax evoking people escape their income by one or any other means. For them, this system is applicable. And if the assessing officer has reason to believe that there is a omission or failure on the part of the assessee to furnish the return of income or disclose the income, true information. And next is the information in his possession reveals that an income has escaped assessment. Whenever the assessing officer believes that some income is escaped from the assessment, then this assessment is possible. Okay, this is called as assessment. Okay, in the assessment, first is self-assessment, second is the assessment based on return, third is the regular assessment, fourth is assessment, reassessment or escaping income assessment. 4 assessments. Okay, then what is income or return of income? Don't say that return of income means returning the income to assessee. Okay. What is return of income? Return of income means it is the prescribed form of income tax department. It is the prescribed form of income tax department in which you have to fill the necessary information relating to the assessee, his income and tax. That form is called as return of income. Remember this. Okay. It means an assessee whose income is more than exempted income has to provide the detailed information about the computation of income and the tax liability on such income in a prescribed form. That prescribed form is called as return to the income tax officer before due date or on the due date. That is called as return. Okay. Next is permanent account number. What is permanent account number? PAN. PAN. PAN means permanent account number. Income tax department gives permanent account number to every taxpayer born on its record. That is, it issues 10 characters alphanumeric. Alphanumeric means some are alphabets and some are numbers. That PAN is having number. PAN card is having number. That number is containing some alphabets and some numbers. To each refund, claim and or assessment. For the purpose of assessment of income, for the assessment of tax, for the assessment of refund and tax payment, tax refund, for all the purposes, This card is issued to every taxpayer. A person who is having tax above the income exempted limit, that person has to possess the permanent account number. Okay, permanent account number is having 10 alphanumeric character. Character based on certain sequence. I will not go for explaining that. Some numbers are there and some alphabets are there. 10. That means the PAN account number. 10 alphanumeric characters are there. And issued in the form of laminated card. Laminated card. It is a smart card. Okay. Then PAN. What is PAN? For the purpose of permanent account number is to identify the return, tax payment, challans, and the correspondence received from the assessee and link those to their assessment record to facilitate quick disposal of their refund claims or assessments. For each and every correspondence and interactions between the income tax department in writing, PAN is essential. PAN is essential. Okay. With this, I complete the first chapter, Introduction of Income Tax. With this, I complete the first chapter, Introduction of Income Tax. Some part, that is history and characteristics, and some part is completed by Sangeeta Samsudi madam, and some is remaining part I completed. And in the next class, we will see the residential status of assessing. This is the theory part. First is theory part, and from residential status, the technical terms comes regarding income tax. Okay, thank you.